I'll hand over to the wonderful Kate. Kate.
Thanks, Sanjay, and hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on what is a very hot Thursday. I'm just going to share my screen. That should all work fine. Hopefully you can all see a big orange Supercool. I can see it glaring back on my face. So today we're going to be talking about websites versus the planet, a lot about digital sustainability, and I'm also going to talk quite a bit about what we're doing as an agency at Supercool to reduce our impact on the planet. So first things first, I'm a strategy director at Supercool. We're a digital design agency. The company's been going now for about 19 years or so. We're a small agency of just 12 people, and we're made up of developers, designers, consultants, and strategists. We work exclusively in the cultural arts and heritage sector. So most of our websites are for theatres, concert halls, touring companies, museums, places like that. As a small agency and as people who work with really caring organisations, we're very lucky. And really, as just a group of individuals, we've worked pretty hard at trying to be as green as possible and reduce our impact on the planet. This probably started about 6 years ago when the company went remote. That was partly to improve work-life balance for employees back when there was just 4 people, but also to reduce the impact of commuting to the office. Now at 12 people, we are fully remote and all over the place. So I'm up in West Yorkshire. We've got people over in Scotland, Wales, and the south of England. I can see that someone put their hand up. I don't know if that was to ask a question at this point or whether it's because you can't see or hear me or something.
No, I think we're all good, Kate.
Okay, good. I will crack on. But over the last couple of years, we've been focusing quite a bit more on our impact on the environment and what we can do to reduce that impact. So we've started publishing sustainability pledges. So these are pledges that we publish once a year where we outline as a company what we're going to do to reduce our impact. And we also talk about what we've tried to do that hasn't worked. And we're also really open and honest and talk about the things we pledged last time but haven't actually achieved. An example of this is sustainable hosting. So in our first pledge a couple of years ago, we said we were going to move all our clients over to sustainable hosting. If any of you have tried to do that, it turns out it's a little bit more complicated, especially when you factor in things like reliability, cost of hosting, and whether the data centers themselves are powered by renewable or green energies. We've actually decided to stay with our hosting provider because although it's DigitalOcean, in case any of you are interested, although they themselves are not registered as a green hosting company, the data centers where all our servers are based are running on renewable energy. And so we think that's okay. And we're actually working with DigitalOcean and lobbying them to become a green hosting partner. And we've been really open about this. We've spoken about it with our clients and we've published blogs and articles about why we've made that decision. We've also signed up with a great organisation called Ecology. They're a social enterprise based in Bristol, I think, who plant trees and invest in green energy projects across the world as a means of offsetting carbon. So we've worked out as a company what our carbon emissions are. And we've kind of upped that quite a bit. I don't know if any of you have tried to go through that process. It's a bit of a fuzzy process, but we've kind of increased our numbers there quite a bit. And we're actually what's called a climate positive workforce with Ecology, which means not just our working lives are offset, but also our lives as individuals as well. We've definitely not achieved everything yet, and we're still working really hard on improving our sustainability. And this goes through to everything in terms of how we approach our product development, how we approach building websites and reviewing our partners and our suppliers as well. A key part of what we've done, though, is also to encourage our clients and the people we work with to be green as well. And this involves educating our sector, talking at conferences, but also engaging with things like Create Leicester, where we're talking with other business owners or other account managers or strategists or developers, so that we can share some of our learnings and kind of pass the information on. Something we do, which is actually a really nice way to emphasize our green credentials with our clients, but also celebrate a little, is we because we've calculated how much carbon we emit per hour as a company, we can actually offset the carbon emitted when building a new website. So when we launch a new website, a couple of weeks after go live, we send our new client a certificate that says how much carbon we've offset, and we sponsor trees or plant trees located near them, as close as we can get to them geographically, to celebrate that achievement. It's a really nice way to kind of set that journey off with our clients, that this is something that's really important to us, but also it's a really great way to celebrate a new website going live. So you might be asking why this even matters. Obviously, we're in the middle of a climate emergency. We know that the climate is something that we need to improve. But one of the things that's really hard to quantify is the kind of digital, the kind of impact digital activities has on the climate. It's really easy to kind of quantify or think about, you know, reducing landfill, recycling, reducing buying stuff, going out buying secondhand, things like that. It's really easy to understand how that can have a more positive impact on the environment. But when it comes to our digital activity, we don't often hear about it as much, and it's often much more difficult to quantify. I think some of this is changing. So the news, news recently about how terrible cryptocurrencies are for the environment is starting to make people realize just the impact of everything that we do digitally. But the thing that's really important to consider is that often when we're talking about reducing physical waste, digital activity becomes an answer to that. So a really good example of that for our clients at Supercool is the theatres and concert halls that do print marketing. So they're saying, well, we're going to reduce print marketing in favour of digital marketing so that we reduce our carbon footprint. But they're not necessarily considering the the carbon footprint of email marketing, which I'm not going to cover too much today, but there's a whole load of information about that on the web and also on our website about how you can reduce the impact of your email activity. So we really do need to take into account our digital footprint and to put it into some context. So Website Carbon is a website where you can go and measure the carbon emitted per page view. You can pop a URL in there and it returns you a kind of a measurement in weight. So they say that on average, a website produces 0.5 grams of carbon for every page view. So this is really small amounts. It's really not a huge amount per page view. But obviously we know that our websites get really significant amounts of traffic. And so this quickly escalates quite a lot. So we benchmarked our clients and on average, our clients get 2.8 million page views a year. And at 0.5 grams per page, that's 1,400 kilos of carbon a year that is emitted. That's the equivalent of a return flight from Birmingham to New York every year, driving 2,785 miles in your car, or the amount of carbon that is absorbed by one tree in 34 years. That's how long it would take to absorb that 1 year's worth of carbon emitted by that website. And really, when we're looking at benchmarking our clients, some of those are much smaller. So some of our clients really only get in the tens of thousands of page views a year, but some of our clients are nearing kind of 20 million page views a year. So for some of our clients, this is really significant amounts of carbon are just being emitted by people engaging with their website. So what actually creates a digital carbon footprint? So this is something you might already be aware of this and you might already know about this. But I find this is a really useful tool for explaining to our clients who perhaps aren't very technically savvy or coming to this kind of concept for the first time.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Could you do me a favor? Could you just stop the screen share and start again? Because for some reason, I don't think it's displaying as fast as you're talking.
What am I? Let me try again.
It seems to be pixelated a bit. So let's just start the reset share again and see if that kind of works. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you there.
That's all right. Have you got like a green screen now?
Yes, I can see your screen now.
And have you got?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I think it was some buffering thing or that. I don't know, some technical mumbo jumbo. But
let me know if that happens again.
Cheers, Kate.
So there were four main things that contribute to the carbon footprint of our digital activities. So the grey box here is manufacturing, and this data is from a Greenpeace report that they did in 2017, and they did the same report in 2012. So manufacturing in 2017 accounted for 16% of the electricity consumption in the IT sector. What's interesting about manufacturing is that this is decreasing, so it's less of a segment, so the percentage is less compared to 2012. But also, as companies try and be more circular and try and recycle as much of that precious material in our devices as possible, and also as government policies come in and say things like you can't have a different type of charger, you need to have something more universal, we're starting to see that drop. So there are gains being made in manufacturing. The next one is networks. So this is the orange segment. So this is really just the networks that take data from our data centers to our end users. And to put it really simply, the further it has to travel, the more the carbon footprint is going to be. So this is worth considering. The location of your data centers is worth considering based on your typical users. So if you're managing a website for a company in the US, you need to consider having data centers or hosting the website over there in the US. You can use things like content delivery networks that will then help this and actually store the data on proxy servers geographically closer to your end users, which is another way to kind of reduce that network distance. The green segment is our data centers, where they're using huge amounts of energy to cool and run the servers. The less we have on them, the less energy they're going to use. And then lastly, that big, huge chunk, which is in 2017 was 34%, is devices. So this is the amount of energy that our devices need to actually view and engage with digital activities. So think of this as kind of how much energy it requires your mobile or your laptop to read a website or to join a Zoom call or something like that. And based on this knowledge, we can kind of summarize the goal in 3 points. So we can try to store as little as possible on the servers. The less we store, the less energy is required to run those servers. And I'll talk a bit about how you can kind of manage that with clients and how you can approach that kind of decision-making process. Reduce the distance that data needs to travel on networks. Things like thinking about where you're hosting your website and whether you use something like Cloudflare, which is a content delivery network, will help with this. And reduce the amount of power needed to view a web page. And this is what we're going to talk about in a bit more detail, which is all to do with page weight and reducing the page weight, which will reduce carbon footprint. So what is page weight? So I'm going to talk about really the idea of content managed websites and how the choices of the content you put on your website determines how much energy that web page is going to need to be viewed and engaged with. So this is really useful if you're thinking of reviewing your existing business website, but also when you're talking to clients, especially if you're working with clients who have content managed sites or clients who want the web page to be full of videos and images and not much else. So page weight is made up of the amount and the type of content that sits on your page. The design can also inform this as well. So you'll know that sometimes somebody sends you a website and they say, look at this snazzy website, it's amazing. And you go to it and your laptop sounds like it's about to take off. That's because it's using a lot of energy to engage with that page. But when it comes to content, there's some really simple things we can do to help reduce the amount of weight on that page. So the things that make a page heavy really is the things you would expect. Two of the biggest culprits are video content and images. And then we have other things in the background like the fonts, the scripts, the design, things like that. So in these two wireframes, the page on the left is going to weigh more than the page on the right. So we're going to have much more carbon emitted for every page view on the left versus on the right. And we can see this in action on a real page. So this is a quick screenshot from a page from a website we've built. So this is for B Music, a venue in Birmingham. The total page weight here is 7.3 megabytes uncached. So it's a bit less if it's cached, but that's a significant page weight. A lot of this comes from the image. It's a very snazzy image. Some of it from the fonts. We've got some custom CSS here, so there's a chunky bit there. And then we have a lot of third-party stuff going on in the background, like Facebook tracking pixels, Google Tag Manager, things like that. So it all adds up to quite a heavy page. In contrast, on the same website, we have BMusic's FAQ page. This is much lighter. It's really a highly functional, factual page, and we can see here uncached, it's just 1.5 megabytes. That's a fraction of that bigger page. What's really interesting here, and we'll talk about this in terms of strategy, is that when you try and reduce the carbon footprint of your website, it's quite likely that you're also improving the usability and the accessibility of your website at the same time. So a really good example of this is an FAQ page. People come to this page to find factual information very quickly. They don't come to it to see big pictures or videos or snazzy whizzing design elements. They just want to find out something simple like your opening hours, or can I get a refund, or who do I contact if I have a complaint? And so you can reduce the page significantly. You can reduce the weight significantly on this kind of page. So based on knowing that it's, images, number of web fonts, scripts, external resources, you're embedding Vimeo or YouTube videos, that's what makes a page heavy. We should just, yes, has it got stuck again?
I'm so sorry again. Yeah, I think the last 3 slides are just froze a bit. So if you okay just to kind of just preview those 3 slides again.
Yes.
See if that works. I think there's some good numbers on there, and I think we're just struggling to see the details.
Yes, 1 second. Let me just flick back on here.
I think we should blame the heat. That is freezing a bit. So we could see that one perfect. I think it's the next one where you're talking about the FAQs, the screens. There you go. That's better.
There you go. You've got the FAQs. Yeah. So a lot less on there.
Yeah, and then I think from then onwards, it was still a bit choppy. No, that's fine. And then we got to, was it the Banksy thing?
Nice. Yes. So we're just going to scrap images on all our websites. That's what we're going to do, and then we'll have a much greener planet. Obviously, this isn't practical. None of us can do this. We work with cultural organisations, touring companies, theatres. They're often selling events and activities, and to do that without images or video or sound is really hard. And so we understand that our clients need to have this kind of content. However, we can make decisions about when do we have images and when do we not have images, and when do we invest in that heavy page and when do we not. So you can kind of work on the basis that if you try to make everything easy to find, quick to navigate and simple to use, the chances are you're reducing the carbon footprint of your website. You're also making your users very happy, and you're also improving accessibility on your website as well. A really nice example of this is things like your address or contact numbers. If your website is well built and it's search engine optimized, and somebody goes to Google and says address for this shop or opening hours for this shop, it will appear on Google, and actually people don't even hit your website. So it's 1 page load less. And whilst that can feel a little bit counterintuitive to say we're going to have less people on our website, actually for some of those really quick questions, that's okay. That person is engaged with you as a business. They want to contact you. They want to find you. They want to come and visit you in some way. It's not the end of the world if they don't hit one of your web pages. They will probably hit it in some other way through your other customer journeys. So the first thing to ask yourself is whether you really need this web page. And this is a real challenge with some clients. Depending on the kind of people you're working with, you might find that people are very attached to certain types of content. And that can be a little bit of a challenge and a little bit difficult to manage. But again, it's about making your website as easy as possible for users. So I don't know if many of you have websites that feel a little bit like this, where you've got an awful lot of old information, old pages. You might have an archive. You might have You might have loads of news items from years ago that are no longer relevant. You might, if you're like us at Supercool, an agency, you might find you have some old case studies that are perhaps no longer relevant, that they're just kind of sat there. Or maybe just some of your old news or blog content still has images on it that are being stored on a server somewhere that is not necessarily relevant. And so what we can do is start to say, well, first of all, let's tidy up the house. Let's get the website nice and neat. And then we can make some choices about what to do next. A really easy way to start this process is just to have a look at analytics. Data is a really compelling way to help you make decisions. Look at what's getting your most hits. Look at what's really not getting many hits. I worked with some clients recently who were quite keen to migrate over a large amount of their news content. But when I looked at it, nobody had clicked on that. Nobody had viewed that news item for 2 years. And we agreed that it just wasn't really valuable to have it. They could store it some other way if they needed to keep that into that content, but it wasn't useful on the website. So once you've got your house nice and clean and everything's tidied up, you can then start to do some benchmarking and work out, okay, what is the actual carbon footprint of our website? And hopefully you're all keeping up with the screen. We've now got a title that says benchmarking, shout if not. There's a few different places where you can benchmark. These tools, so Google Lighthouse, Web Page Test, and Moby Ready, are really nice user-friendly tools. Google Lighthouse gives you quite a lot of information about what is creating weight on your page. It can be a little bit cumbersome to use if you're not used to using it though. Web Page Test and Moby Ready provide slightly more higher level kind of information, which can be a bit easier, especially if you've got clients who want to run a quick test on the website. So Web Page Test does this. So this includes things like whether we're using a content delivery network, what the first byte time is, whether we're compressing images, things like that. Moby Ready gives quite a bit more information actually, which is quite nice, and it will actually give you the weight there of what's transferred, which is really useful if you want to start kind of measuring things in actual bytes and things like that. Once you've done this benchmarking, you can then, if you want to, and if you're brave, set yourself a budget. So we talk to our clients quite a bit about setting a page weight budget, where you say no page is going to be above 1 kilobyte or megabyte or whatever we want to go with. And then we can start to look at our user journeys in detail and start to think, okay, so where are those quick fact-finding journeys and where are those opportunities to engage more deeply, where we're saying, actually, we accept that there's a significant carbon footprint here, but that's okay. And for us, working with our clients, what's really interesting is that our clients do amazing things for society. They're bringing joy to people's lives. They have free workshops. They're educating children. They're filling in the gaps for arts provision that's not happening in schools. All of this stuff is really, really lovely stuff. And we actually say it's okay for your website to have sometimes a hefty carbon footprint because your benefit to society is pretty great. But as long as you understand where you're making those decisions, you can then make them strategically, but also think about offsetting that carbon footprint. So your quick fact-finding user journeys might be things like your address, opening times, phone number, dining options, FAQs, things like that. And if we think about these as being easy to find, quick to navigate, and simple to use, we will significantly improve our users' experience of our website. And as I said, that sometimes might mean they don't even hit the website at all. They find that information through Google or through some other means. We then have our deeper engagement journeys. I think the screen sharing, is the screen sharing okay?
Yeah, I think it's okay. I think what you might need to do on every slide, move your mouse ever so slightly, just so it kind of plays catch up. I think that might be a workaround, but yeah, so far so good, Kate.
Some nice bug fixing there. Excellent. So the deeper engagement journeys for us and our clients, it's things like the about us, fundraising, behind the scenes, mission, impact. For example, if you're working with small businesses, it might be the personalities behind that small business and why someone should buy from them as opposed to Amazon. If you're working with restaurants, hotels, it might be about the experience. You know, people aren't just trying to find your address because they're on their way. It might be trying to sell something about how great your restaurant is above other people and other competitors in the area. And what we tend to find is that those quick fact-finding journeys need clear titles, short and sweet, easy to find. Our deeper engagements can include rich content, editorial copy, video, images, testimonials, interactions. That's where you can say, okay, in this instance, we're going to have a higher carbon footprint on those pages. And by tidying up your website beforehand and setting that page weight budget, it allows you to make those decisions and say, well, actually for our FAQ page or contact page or visit page, we're going to keep it really small. And for our About Us page, our mission, why we exist, who we are, it's going to be a bit heavier, and that's okay. And so once you've gone through that process, you can then start to manage content in that way going forwards, and it will help you make decisions about what to have and what not to have. It also helps with making decisions about what to get rid of as well, and how valuable is this content. We tend to find with our clients that if they think about content in this way, it also improves their buy-in when it comes to, do users really engage with this content? Is there much value in this content? There is often a perception that there's no cost to putting content on the website, so I will just put it on there. There's no cost to having this archive of 50 products that are no longer for sale on the website, so I'm just going to leave them on there. But actually there is a cost. There's an environmental cost, but also there's a usability cost, and there's a search engine optimization cost. It gets in the way, it's cluttered, it becomes difficult to navigate. And by thinking about the environmental impact of your website, you often find that clients are a bit more receptive to tidying up their content in general. So I just wanted to kind of end with a couple of resources and a couple of kind of actions that you can go away with, or you can talk to your clients about. So this website Carbon, this website called Website Carbon is a really nice website that I mentioned it at the beginning. You can pop a URL in there and it returns a really lovely visual that quantifies the impact of that website based on, I think it's like 20,000 visits a month or something. What I really like about this is that it's really easy to understand. 100 million bubbles is easier to understand than 0.62 grams or something like that. And in terms of things you can do now, so consider nominating a sustainability guardian or somebody in your organization who's going to take on the kind of challenge of managing your digital sustainability. For us at Supercool, that's actually my colleague Katie. She's been doing great work. She's the one who's worked out our carbon footprint, become carbon literate. She's also, it's a bit of a big task, but going through all of our suppliers and checking in on their sustainability credentials. And then together as a company, we're deciding what we ditch and what we keep. Definitely talk to your suppliers and clients about this stuff. As I said at the beginning, one of the challenges we've had is moving to green hosting, but actually by having a dialogue with DigitalOcean, we actually feel we're having a bigger impact by working with them collaboratively than just jumping ship and saying you're not the right supplier for us. Create a sustainability pledge. It's kind of a bit scary to put something out there and say, we're going to do these things over the next 12 months, and then 12 months later say, actually, we didn't achieve them all, we failed, but we're still working hard on it. And what we find for our clients is that really reassures them. It makes us seem human. It builds the trust that they have in us, because we all know that, you know, sometimes things go wrong and we don't achieve what we want to do. And also share what you've done. Share your achievements with colleagues. Platforms like this, hopefully sharing this is going to inspire somebody to make a change in their organization, and therefore my impact on the environment has become slightly more positive. And that is it. Any questions from anybody? I'm very sorry about the technical issues, but hopefully it was all okay.
No, it was fantastic, Kate. Thank you so much for presenting that presentation. Really, really insightful. Plenty of takeaways. There's quite a few kind of websites I was trying to jot down as you were talking in between the technical hiccups, but we got around it. I think, yeah, it was really nice and comprehensive. So thank you again for presenting that. And I'm sure you're going to be getting some digital claps and round of applauses on the chat channel. I do have a couple of questions lined up to kind of kick things off. Me personally, I come from an agency background, so I'm familiar with some of the challenges of working with kind of the internal technical limitations within agency, but also trying to get all the requirements from various clients. I think this particular area and trying to build that case for an agency to get behind and champion, but at the same time trying to convince a client there's value in investing in this type of kind of way of working, this kind of mindset, this kind of way of, you know, embracing how we could deliver the website. The traditional way of producing these beautiful pages, beautiful imagery, videos, seems appealing to clients, but for an agency to turn around to tell a client, you could have it, but you could have this that has no imagery, but you're saving this much carbon. How on earth can you build that case?
I think, I mean, I would say for us at Supercool, we're very lucky. Everyone we work with is, you know, they're in it for the love of what they do, and they're not in it to sell as much as possible. So our clients tend to be quite receptive to this sort of thing. But I think one of the things that really helps is tying it into either the organization's existing activity and mission, or talking about it at a different angle. And it really is about, you know, when it comes to somebody who is highly commercially driven and wants to sell as much as they can through their e-commerce website, that website has to be highly performant. It has to work on multiple devices. It has to work for users on poor internet connections. It has to be highly accessible. If you tick off all those things, chances are it's not an all singing, dancing, whizzing around website with loads of video content and images. So sometimes you can go a different route and say, oh, by the way, the bonus is it's more green as well. But if you're working with anybody who already is trying to do that stuff, quite often people just haven't considered their website. They just, you know, they're already working to be more sustainable. They already have an understanding of the climate emergency. They've just never considered the website to be an issue. So it's not even crossed their mind that they would think, oh, we can make this more sustainable. So I think the first thing is to have a dialogue with that client and try and understand what motivates them, and then kind of shift your narrative to meet that client's motivations. I think that for us at Supercool, we enjoy the client's feedback when they are pleased that something is greener and less harmful for the environment. But in a way, our goal as a company is to produce products that have limited impact on the environment, kind of regardless of whether the client cares or not. Sure. So it doesn't really matter if the client says, I don't care about that. You know, I don't care if it's a green page. If we've met their kind of goals in other ways. Does that kind of help?
Yeah, it does. One of the other challenges, and there is a question on the chat channel by Kim, but I'm just going to jump in very quickly and just quickly ask mine. Sorry. The creative team to get behind this mission as well. So design teams to, let's build a case here. So if we're working with a client and they have provided their brand guidelines, their kind of look and feel, we as an agency take it on as a design team, but then we've got to take into account the limitations of imagery, colors, and interactions. How on earth would we strike that balance within the creative team itself, that we've got to be conscious of how much this particular page is going to be, I guess, weighted?
I think a really important part of this work, certainly what we've done at Supercool, is actually getting team buy-in within the organization as well. And whenever we advertise roles, talking about our ethos when it comes to accessibility and sustainability is a big part of what we talk about, and then that attracts people who cares about these things. So when we're hiring designers and developers, a lot of the feedback we get when we say to people, why do you want to work here, it's because they really value our values in that way and it aligns with them. I I expect if you don't really care about that stuff, you'd probably read one of our job ads and think it's dead fluffy and
Sure.
a bit like, oh, why are they talking about that? And so it kind of, in a way, where we hire people who are genuinely interested in those areas and those values, so that really helps. Also, this, the work that we do with clients, both in terms of and kind of what we're doing with the websites we build from a technical point of view and a design point of view, goes hand in hand with all the work we do in terms of being a climate positive workforce, talking about this stuff. So this morning when we had our stand up, I was like, oh, I'm talking to lots of agency people today about digital sustainability. It helps get people on board, and so they understand the importance of it. And I think it's something that you need to talk about internally as an organization, not just with your clients.
Yeah, definitely. It's beginning to feel like you alone, or what would you call it? Did you say champion or digital?
Yeah, the digital sustainability champion or sustainability.
Yeah, that one individual won't be able to change the ship in its direction. It would have to be a collective force, and everyone agreeing with that mission, even down to the designer, all the way to the client that you're working with.
Yeah,
great stuff. Kim put a question on the chat. If we want to answer that, Kate. So, do you have any good frameworks or methods for judging the sustainability quota of your suppliers?
We don't have any strict frameworks or methods. We're currently in the process of doing an audit, essentially. So we've listed out all of our suppliers, which are mostly digital. We're a remote team, other than a bit of hardware from Apple and the occasional monitor and desk chair. All of our suppliers are kind of product or digital suppliers in some way. So we've created an audit and we're going through it and we're asking them. And the initial bit of work is just getting their sustainability policy from them. Some organizations, we can find it on the website. Some we have to email and ask and have conversations with them. And then we're sort of, in an ad hoc way, kind of scoring them. So if they have it on their website, they talk about it a lot. Amazing, they're a great supplier, let's keep working with them. If they just don't have anything on their website and they don't reply to us after a couple of emails, then we're like, we probably need to replace them with somebody who's a bit more active and sustainable. And if they're open to a conversation like DigitalOcean are, it's really weighing up the pros and cons of moving to somebody who's already done the work versus working with somebody who's in the process of that work. So it's not a kind of we don't have a framework as such. The one thing we've not looked at is how the carbon footprint of our suppliers influences our carbon footprint. So we've not been able to look at the full carbon footprint of our supply chain. I think that is an extremely challenging thing to do as a digital agency. And even organizations that are looking at the carbon footprint of the full supply chain, it's mostly manufacturing and product development where it's easy to measure. So, if you see something, I saw an ad the other day for a pair of shoes that says the carbon footprint on the trainers. That's much easier to quantify than the carbon footprint of the SaaS HR system that company's using. Because nobody quite understands how to measure that. But the first thing really is to just write a list and just go through and contact a few a week and see what kind of response you get.
Great stuff. Hopefully, Kim, that has answered your question. Kate, I think that's a perfect time to conclude tonight's webinar. Again, thank you so much for presenting your wonderful talk. The webinar itself now, I'm just going to conclude by showing some quick outro slides, and then we'll be all on our way. So I'll be let me just check things on my end. There you go. Try that now. So everyone can see that. Wonderful. Thank you again, Kate. Quick shout outs again to our community supporters, 20i, Annika, CGI, Site, Effect, Fiberhop, Hurdle, Insight, and Reviews.io. Again, to our bar sponsor, Agency Works, De Montfort University, Bulb Studios, and LCB Depot. And again, just a quick shout out for those of you on the webinar itself. If you know of anybody or yourself wants to take this opportunity to use this platform to share a case study, share some of your methods within your kind of professional career, to share with people, like-minded people in a webinar format or in person or a workshop, please do get in touch. We always want to hear excited people who wants to join us on this journey. Next up, we do have another event lined up. We are aiming for October to coincide with LCB's design season. We are looking for it to be in person, and hopefully we'll be able to announce some details in the coming months or so. Once again, thank you so much for attending the webinar. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Kate, thanks for joining. James, thanks for joining too. All the best, everyone. Enjoy the weather. Get some drink down you, and all the best. Thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.